Let's start this again. Okay, I'm going to start again. Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome. Hopefully, second time lucky. Very warm welcome to everyone to this session. It's National Mentoring Day, so we are super excited to have you here today. As a company that is dedicated completely to mentoring, we are extra excited to be here today to share with you. And a big thank you to all of you out there who are part of mentoring already, or even if you're just considering it, that would be fantastic. And the title of today's session is How to Turn Allyship into Action, even if everyone is busy. Because and by the way, I absolutely love interaction in the session today, so please do use the chat and join in. But if you are one of those people that you want to do the right thing, but you're probably busy, in fact I suspect that pretty much everyone on this call is busy at some point in their lives, if not all of their lives. So how do we start to make a real difference? And what I'm going to do today is share with you the real crux of what we've been doing at Goal 17 and why that's made such a massive difference, and the kind of results that we're seeing, but also some of the academic research that we've unearthed around this. And the ultimate aim is by the end of today, all of you are going to have some knowledge and some skills and be empowered to actually go and take this forward. Because as you will learn, we are on a massive mission here at Goal 17, and we want to bring as many people on board with us as possible. So that's the title of today's session. And to get into a little bit more depth, it's how do we take this diversity, inclusion, and equality from something that's nice to do and make it happen whilst also adding some commercial strength as well. Because what I have discovered, and we'll talk a little bit more about this as we go through, is that everybody out there generally wants to do the right thing. We all know. And one bit of academic research that I'm not going to share with you today, I'm going to assume that you know this, is that the benefit of having diversity within our organizations and within our society is scientifically proven to make a massive difference. It makes companies more commercial, it increases innovation, and I'm preaching to the converted, right? It just makes sense. But how do we know we want to do that, but how do we actually make it happen? And what I'm going to share with you today is actually how we've got organizations shifting the dial in a way that isn't. And as part of that, what I want to do is share with you some of the biggest secrets that we found, because through running Goal 17, we actually found that we unearthed a massive commercial goal. So let me tell you a bit about who we are. Goal 17 has been running for just under 3 years. And what we do is we focus solely on mentoring. Now, I can tell you now that mentoring is not the secret that I'm going to be telling you about today. It's related to it, but it's not the secret. But what we do is we've been working with companies mentoring, and we've become pretty good at it. We've been featured in Forbes, on BBC News, in the national press. We've won numerous awards, and we're very fortunate to have some incredible blue chip clients that we work with all across the UK, and even expanding out to globally now. And what we do is we run these programs. Well, actually, before I go into that, let me explain. We're running these programs, and what they're doing for our clients is that they're generating for them a significant commercial return on investment. So this isn't just about us saying this is a nice thing to do. What I want to show you today is something that has some real commercial strength, because on average for our clients, we are generating £40 return on every pound that they invest with us. And to explain this, what I need to do is explain a little bit of my story. But just to go back to what we actually do, we run these programs where we bring together corporate clients, train them how to be mentors, and get them partnered with mentees and get them actually starting to shift the dial when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And how I came about this was that I actually run my own organization. I ran an organization for about 12 years. And it became one of the fastest growing in its sector. And in that organization, I built a team of over 1,000 people nationwide. And we were absolutely smashing all of the previous targets. And people started asking us, how were you doing this? Why were you doing this? And when I stepped away from that organization, because I kind of maxed out my growth in it, I looked at it and I thought, how did we do this? How did we get such a massive and effective team? How did we smash all the previous market records and really grow? And two things when we started to research came up from that. The first thing was we had the most diverse team. Now, actually, to be honest, when I looked at the business, it stumped me, because we looked at the people that were in the business and they were so different and so diverse. We were looking at them going, what is the connection? What connects all these different people? And what we realized in the end was the thing that connected with them was the fact that they weren't connected, was the fact that they were all so different, and that we created an atmosphere where anyone from any background was accepted and welcomed. And that meant that we could recruit talent from places that other organizations weren't recruiting talent. We were creating a marketplace that was available to other people that otherwise wouldn't necessarily access that workspace. And the reason that we were able to do that was because we developed quite a unique mentoring culture. So we were able to attract this diverse talent, and then we were able to keep them and help them progress because of this mentoring culture. And what was different about that mentoring culture was that it wasn't about helping people fit in. It was about helping people belong, because actually what we wanted was, we didn't want people to fit in. We didn't want to have this kind of cookie cutter. We wanted everybody to be different and bring that difference, but make them feel like they belonged. And it was the mentoring that enabled us to do that. So once I understood this, I thought, this is great. And we had lots of organizations asking us, saying, how can we do this? We want to replicate this. How can we do this? So I thought, right, well, we work out the system and let's go teach it. But I'm a big fan of not just teaching stuff in a classroom. I'm a big fan of immersive learning and helping people learn through action. And so I was looking for an interesting way to do this. And a chance meeting landed me at Manchester United Football Club and around a load of people in the football industry. And I met this amazing gentleman here, a gentleman called John Shields. He's the CEO of the Manchester United Football Club. And he told me about the amazing work the football club were doing to reach out into diverse communities and to help them connect and help young people that had very, very few opportunities start to cross the void into different parts of society. And I was absolutely amazed at the incredible work that John and other organizations were doing in this space. And then when I got to understand a bit better about what they were doing, I discovered that actually they didn't have much money. And even though maybe they were connected to a world famous football club, they didn't have necessarily money to deliver these programs all the time, and they needed funds. So I got thinking, and I thought, well, how cool if they've got all these amazing young people that need a hand, rather than me just teaching this mentoring to people, why don't we do an immersive mentoring experience and pair our corporate mentor trainees with some of the beneficiaries of these football clubs? And that was really how Goal 17 was born. We were born by going and taking disadvantaged homeless young people that were going through employability academies and pairing them with corporate clients and helping them work together so that the corporate clients could learn how to mentor and the young people would get the help that they need. And this was hugely effective. Now, firstly, I'll be honest, when we set out, the main aim of this was to actually help get these young people the transformation that they needed in their lives. And that happened. And this year alone, we've already created £250,000 worth of social value through running these programs and helping young people transform their lives. And not necessarily always young people, but by giving them the mentoring support they need, we've helped them get those transformations. But the real value actually came from something slightly unexpected. And that was the impact that these programs had on our mentors. So yes, it was having the expected impact on the mentees, but the impact it had on the mentors was quite literally incredible. Because what happened was, not only were they learning the skills of how to mentor, but it appeared that they started to overcome some of their unconscious bias. And it appeared that suddenly they were empowered to develop this more diverse workforce like I developed in my first business. So when we dug into this a little bit deeper, we wanted to understand, well, why were people not doing this already? And what we discovered was actually most people wanted to do the right thing. Most people they understood the benefit of this diverse workforce and they wanted to do it. But there were two key things that got in their way. Firstly, time. That they were busy, right? They were chasing targets. They were in their organizations. They had their goals. They had their other teams. They were busy people. So even if they really, really wanted to shift the dial when it came to diversity and inclusion and equality, what happened was they didn't, because they just didn't have time. It wasn't a lack of want. And the second thing was that actually there was a lot of fear around this and lack of skills, that people again wanted to do the right thing, but they were so worried about saying or doing the wrong thing that actually a lot of the time it was easier to do nothing. So there were these two big barriers that were previously stopping people making a difference. And when we introduced this work, what we discovered was this framework of mentoring basically gave people the permission to do what they wanted to do. We gave them this framework that now enabled them to say, actually, I am going to make a difference, and I can make a difference. And it doesn't have to be too time consuming. And this can become part of how I function. So we unclip people's wings. And this was the impact that we were seeing with loads of our corporate clients going through the programs, that they were actually able to suddenly, almost sometimes without realizing it, shift unconscious bias and actually start putting in process what they needed to create true diversity and equality within their teams. Now, that's what we saw. And as many of you will know, as an organization, we work very closely with some of the world's leading academics in mentoring and in all sorts of other fields. And what happened is, when we started to see this, we also started to see a load of really interesting academic research that pointed to perhaps some of the reasons why this was happening. So I want to share with you some of that now, and some four key bits of research. So the first thing is a social mobility report that came out from the UK Social Mobility Commission. Now, this came out in 2019. And it stated that social mobility has been stagnant in the UK since 2014. Now, when that came out in 2019, that really shocked people. They thought, how has social mobility been stagnant? We're doing so much more. And they'd be right to think that, because at the time, outreach programs were up 3 times in the 3 years prior to that report coming out. So in those 3 years, there were more programs going into more disadvantaged communities, recruiting more people from diverse backgrounds. So it felt like we were doing so much more, and yet it was stagnant. Now, subsequent reports have come out from the UK Social Mobility Commission in the last year or so that says, actually, since COVID, this won't surprise you, things have actually gone backwards rather than forwards. But how is it that we're doing more and achieving less? And what that report discovered was the reason that we're achieving less is not because we're not outreaching as much. In fact, we're outreaching more, but because when we do outreach to people from diverse backgrounds, the science shows us and the data shows us that they generally get stuck at entry-level jobs. It's very rare to see people from diverse backgrounds progress beyond entry-level jobs, and a lot of the time even retain. So the challenge seems to be that diverse talent is coming into organizations, but it's getting stuck at the bottom. And this is key, and this is key to the shift that we started to see in Goal 17, because we realized that the problem wasn't that we weren't doing enough to try and bring diverse talent into organizations. The problem was actually in the organizations in the first place. It was the internal environment that wasn't helping people progress. And whether that be through unconscious bias, too much time, worried about, or not enough time, I should say, worried about saying or doing the wrong thing, diverse talent was getting stuck. So to shift the dial on this, what we need to do is start moving diverse talent up through the organization. And therefore we have to change what's happening already in the organization. So obviously in recent years, there has been a huge shift, and people have started to want to do more. And we started to see this being impacted in the figures. Now, this is the spend in just the US market that was spent last year on diversity and inclusion. So if you took the big American companies across the US last year, they spent 7.5 billion on diversity inclusion, which is due to rise to 17.2 billion over the next 5 years. So there's a big spend going into this, but what majority of that spend is going on is consultancy and unconscious bias training. So people are saying, yes, we need to do something about this. And that's what they're going, right, let's start looking at how we can shift the dial in the middle of the organization. And a lot of that is going into effectively trying to train people, which sounds great, right? And I thought, brilliant, it's great to know people, organizations are spending money, they're doing stuff on this. But unfortunately, the next bit of research is not so optimistic, because the UK Behavioural Insight Team, which is a government organisation, did some research into unconscious bias training. And unfortunately, what it came up is it said that there is actually no evidence this training actually changes behaviour or improves workplace equality. So we know that we want to do something again, and it's like what we're trying to do is not working. It's super frustrating. So we know again that this kind of trying to train people is just not working. And very recently, through some of our academic partners, I was introduced to some absolutely incredible research. And I'm not going to give you too many stats and figures on this because we're still unpicking and understanding it now. But one of the pieces of research, or a couple of pieces of research that have come out, is all about what happened with the American civil rights movement. Because obviously this is a journey that we're going on, and this is something that has been started, whether we're talking about gender equality, racial equality, orientation equality, it doesn't really matter. But what happened in the American civil rights movement is being repeated now. And as we know, history always repeats itself in terms of the way progress is made. And when the American Civil Rights Movement was live and kicking and things were progressing at that time, there was a very, very similar approach to what was happening now in the corporate space around diversity and inclusion, that they said, right, what we need to do is we need to train people. We need to get people together, and we need to say to them, this is how you need to understand, this is how you need to behave, and so on. And interestingly enough, all the research from that time showed that that was ineffective. But what it also showed was where it was effective was when there were multiple small but meaningful interactions. So what shifted the dial with the American civil rights, where they had success, was when they brought people together in one-to-one interactions, and there were lots of multiple interactions. They were small, they weren't large. It wasn't, let's go sit and talk to each other for hours. It was just these lots of little interactions that started to shift perspective. So as you can imagine, that absolutely speaks to being about mentoring. If we can get people having lots of these little small interactions, all of a sudden we start to create that change that we're looking for. So the next and final piece of research I want to show you is actually proving how effective this is. So mentoring is the #1 intervention for minority progression. Cornell University did a study on this. They actually found it was 25% better than the next best intervention. So we know that these lots of small little interactions and mentoring relationships actually makes a difference. And it might sound obvious, right? So you might think, well, great, so why are more people not doing this? And this is what I have to say to you. I promise you that mentoring wasn't the secret, because mentoring is not the secret to this. The secret is actually a little bit deeper than that. Mentoring is, the secret that I want to share with you is actually how you make mentoring work, because we can understand why this would be so effective. But the challenge is, in most places, it's not effective enough. It's not working. And the 3 biggest barriers that we see to mentoring are this. Firstly, that it is too time consuming. This comes up time and time again. How do I mentor without it being too time consuming? Secondly, and please bear with me because I'm sort of paraphrasing it, but that it's wishy-washy. And what I see when I go into organizations is the best intentions organizations are going, yes, we want to do some diversity and inclusion. We want to have better equality. Let's do a mentoring program. And they go, great, let's just pair people up as mentors and mentees and off we go. And it doesn't seem to have the right impact. It's just not structured enough. And finally, we see that mentoring often dwindles. It doesn't last time. It doesn't evolve. It doesn't keep moving. It starts, but it doesn't continue. So the secrets that I want to share with you today is about actually, how do you do this? How do you change those cultures and make this actually work? So to get stuck into that, what I want to do is just really start off and explain what is mentoring, because it might sound obvious, but having spent years studying this, there are different definitions for what mentoring is. And to start off with, let's take the kind of main definition, which is a system of guidance whereby one person shares with another their wisdom and resources to assist another in progressing their lives and careers. And you'll see that I've highlighted a couple of really key things here. So firstly, a system. And this is where the difference can be made, because rather than just pairing people off and sending them off, when you bring a framework and structure around mentoring, it becomes a system. And once it becomes a system, it becomes effective. So where many mentoring relationships fall down is there isn't the structure around it. Now, the beauty of the structure is it also then becomes super time effective. And one of the things that we've really perfected with Goal 17 is getting people to have super effective and meaningful 30-minute mentoring conversations. So bringing that structure in is super, super important. The next thing is wisdom and resources. And this is something that I love so much, because what mentoring is about is not just about teaching things, it's about sharing authenticity. And this also goes back to the lives and careers. It's holistic. It's about one person bringing their true authenticity to a relationship and saying, I know it tells you that you're supposed to do it like that, but I tried it and it didn't work for me. And what I found was this, or I know how you feel right now. And I felt like the same as well. And it's that authenticity that makes mentoring so uniquely powerful. And it's also then the fact that it's holistic. It's not just, this is about, this is how you do this job. It's I know, like I really struggled with my mental health as well when I was under that pressure. It's looking at people's lives, or I had problems with the kids at home when I was trying to work, and having that holistic approach gives people this ability again to find their path on that journey. And going back to what I said originally about not necessarily fitting in, but belonging, to find out how they become part of what's going on and get that through lived experience rather than just textbooks or standard operating procedures or the other resources that they may have to help them. And the real importance of this all is that underpinning it all is the fact that all mentoring is two-way and that everybody benefits from it. So it's not just about the mentee. And this is, again, what we saw with Goal 17 was when we started getting the mentors to really start to be conscious of what they were getting from the relationship and understanding that this was as much about changing them as it was about changing the mentee, that we started to see the real dial shift. So understanding that mentoring is always a two-way process. So to make that happen, at Goal 17, we use the 5 Ps of successful mentoring. And what that does is it gives us the framework to start working out how do we create a proper mentoring program. So the first thing we do, and if any of you are thinking of starting or developing a mentoring program, the first thing to do is think about, well, what is the purpose? Why are we doing this? And not just what is the purpose, but how are we going to measure whether we're achieving our purpose and success? So is our purpose that we want to see more minority progression? Is it that we want to see more recruitment? Is it that we want to see better retention rates? What is the actual purpose and how are we going to measure it? The second thing is, who are the people that are going to be involved and how are we going to support them? Are we going to bring the right people in? How are we going to identify the right people? And then we look at the practicalities. How are we going to train people? So many people think let's just throw people in mentoring relationships, but actually when you start to train people and get them prepared and give them the tools that they need, that's when things get a bit different. How are we going to protect people? Safeguarding is obviously in our programs where we're working with charities and beneficiaries, safeguarding is really important, but that's also super important in the corporate space. How do we make sure that everybody feels that they're in a safe and confidential environment and they get the support that they need, that they're protecting that relationship? And finally, and super importantly, is how do we promote this? And I'm going to give you a case study in a minute of one of our clients where they've really leveraged this for promotion. But how do we promote it both internally and externally to keep the momentum going and to keep this working? So I want to give you a couple of case studies of organisations that we've worked with before I give you kind of the next steps to give you an idea of how this can work. This is an amazing gentleman, Jonas. He is the new Director General of FIFA. And when he came into the organisation, he said, I want to see better equality in this organisation. FIFA, as many of you will know, is a football organisation, so it was very male dominated and for other reasons, I'm sure like many organisations, had the typical diversity challenges. So he said, I want to make a change to that. And so he developed a programme where he specifically said, let's start supporting and mentoring. In this case, it was specifically women. That was the purpose of this program, to get more women up to board level. And having worked with them, I have to say it's incredible, because we are now seeing within the last few months, this program was only launched earlier this year. We now have 3 of the mentees that went through that program are now on boards for major football associations. So we're starting to see that actually by creating these mentoring programs, getting people the support that they need, that they are moving through those organizations, but also the people that are mentoring them are starting to open their eyes to the value that they bring to the table. We've had a long-standing relationship with Checkertrade, an awesome organisation who are doing some amazing work. And it's wonderful to see for them that now their mentors or their mentees are becoming the mentors. So they're creating this culture where they pull people through the organisation. But what I want to pick out with Checkertrade was actually also how they've used this in terms of promotion, because now many of their recruitment teams will talk about the mentoring programs that they're running within the organisation. And the beauty of that is it means people coming into that organisation from different backgrounds know and understand and get the support that they need to get in there, to make sure that they feel like they belong, and then eventually to move beyond those entry-level jobs. And that's, again, we're seeing that progress up through the organisations. And the last one that I want to share with you is Reed Smith. Many of you will know they're a big global legal firm, and they made a really big point of going, we want to help our multicultural network create that movement of diverse talent through our organisation. And just to cement the time element with Reed Smith, as they're a legal firm, for them, billable hours is the currency that they talk in. Everything has to be time effective and efficient because they work on billable hours. And so when we looked at this, it was super important we brought in the structure to make it time efficient. And the value of what we've done with that has meant that they've actually now made mentoring billable hours. So they see it as so effective and so important. And law.com did a whole article around this, that they've actually allowed staff at Reed Smith to bill their mentoring hours as billable hours. For those of you that know that space will know that's a big deal. So again, it goes to show when you make it time effective and also effective in its abilities, it makes a huge difference. So that was the kind of key information that I wanted to share with you today. So just really to recap, understanding that when we look at how do we turn this wonderful thing of allyship and say, yes, we know we want to do the right thing, and we know that we want to move people forward, and we know the benefits of diversity and equality within our organizations, that actually then to move that forward, we need to start changing from the inside out, making the interactions and supporting people through the organization, moving them up through the organization, and using mentoring in an effective way, not just throwing it together and making it a super strong and effective program, is going to be one of the key drivers in making that happen. So what are the next steps? Well, firstly, again, I wanted to kind of offer out, if anyone wants to find out more about this, there's only so much that we can put in to a 30-minute webinar with a bit of Q&A time. So wanted to offer out anyone that wants to take a deeper dive into this. Absolutely, we would love to talk on this. We are on a mission to get literally millions of people mentoring in a way that shifts the dial. So I am always available to talk to people and see if we can help them. Secondly, I really would like to encourage people to go and set up their own mentoring programs. And we've been approached by quite a few people that said, would we run a training to actually show people how to set up the framework and set up their own programs? 100% I'm up for that. So if that's something you're interested in, please do reach out to me. And also, as many of you will know, we have been working really hard behind the scenes developing some incredible technology. We've just launched our first app and technology platform that is looking at mentoring and providing, it takes all the friction out of mentoring opportunities, out of mentoring relationships, but then is looking at how we can use the data that comes out of that to really understand what is going on when it comes to unconscious bias, what is going on when it comes to minority progression in organizations. So we've got loads of opportunities at the moment for people who want to get involved in either using that platform, investing in that platform, partnering with us on that platform. So anyone that's interested in that, please do reach out to that. We are absolutely on a mission to change the way that organizations function in a way that they are empowered to do that internally themselves, and would love anyone to join us on that mission. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. I also want to provide it, I open this up to any questions that anyone might have, and by all means do put them in the chat, or do raise a hand and come off mute. But if you are just listening in and you're on your lunch break, I want to say a massive thank you again for any of you that have mentored or been mentees, mentors, been involved in mentoring. It makes a massive difference to so many people in so many ways. And I think we probably all have our own experiences of how it's made a difference. Has anybody got any questions they would like to throw in? I can see a few faces, but I can see a few screen holds as well. If anyone does, then please do put it on the chat. I will hang around for a bit longer if anyone would like to chat. As promised, I said I'd be here. But thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you found this useful. Please do give me some feedback. Let me know what you think. And I wish you all the best of luck. I hope to see lots more mentoring. And please do let me know how you get on. Happy Mentoring Day, everyone, and have a fantastic day. I'll say goodbye to those of you that want to shoot off. For anyone that wants to chat, I will hang around and have a chat. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Kay. Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Claire. Really lovely having you guys here and seeing you in the chat there.
Fran, I was hoping to ask a question about your Tiller app. So I run a mentoring business as well. I work with schools. We've had a couple of chats before on LinkedIn and things.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in how I could use it. I started off doing primarily peer mentoring training with pupils and getting training in place with that. And you're absolutely singing to the converted here, because I talk a lot about the same things as you, the structure, all of that kind of stuff is amazing. So but what I'm being asked to do a lot of is look at that structure within teachers as well, and the teaching staff, and improving mentoring within departments. I very much focus on well-being rather than diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Would the app kind of accommodate that side of things as well? Because the time pressure is a lot more real for teachers than it is for pupils. So I'm just wondering if that might be an option for me to consider for some of my schools.
Yeah, 100%. So what the platform will do is it's fundamentally, it's especially when you've got those time pressures, because it's taking the friction out of those mentoring relationships, it makes it much more efficient, and it helps build the structure. So probably I guess what we try to create in is I know when our Goal 17 team are there kind of keeping people in the structure, how much more effective we make their mentoring. And so what we're doing that is we're bringing that into the app, so that actually there'll be a little mentoring assistant that will effectively be there supporting people to make sure that they get that mentoring super effective, and keep it under that time pressure that we know everybody has. But then on terms of the well-being, you can then also set and track targets around well-being.
Okay.
So you can then sort of hone in a little bit more on what that's doing. But Miff, it's probably Beth, you and I taking a conversation offline, and I know we said we were going to do that, so we must do it.
We will.
and having a chat about that a bit more, I think.
Fantastic. Great. I'm going to duck off. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miff. Stu has asked a question I see in the chat. Stu said, lots of examples working with large companies. Is there any advice for startups? Brilliant question. So the beauty of a startup is you have the opportunity to get it right from the beginning. And we work with quite a few startups, and it's absolutely brilliant when we can see organizations that go in and say, look, part of our culture is going to be this mentoring culture, and we're going to set it up from the beginning. So really, again, for a startup, going through that process and going, when we bring people on board or when we have a team, we want to have this culture of mentoring. How do we make sure that what's the purpose of that? What's the outcomes that we want to see from it? And going through that process of working out what is your mentoring framework, and helping sort of set that all up at the beginning, so that as people come in, it becomes part of the culture that they are buying into and that they are there for. And it's really exciting when you do it at that startup stage. We obviously do this in our own organization, and it creates a huge amount of strength. Stu, I know you and I are catching up soon, so no doubt we'll have a bit of a detailed conversation on that as well. So hopefully that answers your question, but also for others that answers the question as well about startups. Thank you. Oh, we're coming off yet. Thanks, Stu. Thank you. Anybody else with any other questions they'd like to throw in? If by all means, what I'm going to do is stop recording in case anybody wants to ask a question that they don't want recorded. So that might be goodbye to those of you that are watching on catch up.